Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let us get started. Global stock markets rebounded amid growing conviction that the unilateral tariffs imposed by the U.S. president will eventually be rolled back. The Trump tariffs, which are import taxes paid by the U.S. consumers, may resurface in different forms if courts reject the Trump administration's use of emergency laws. For now, stock market investors are convinced in the fact that Trump always chickens out. Let us review key economic reports released this week, and we begin with the U.S. The widely anticipated non-farm payrolls report confirmed that the job market is gradually cooling but still resilient, powering the market rally on Friday. However, the increase in payrolls in the first 5 months of about 619,000 was the slowest since the Great Recessions, excluding the pandemic years, and at half the rate in 2023. In other U.S. economic news, the trade deficit in April plunged 55% from the previous month when businesses front-loaded to avoid Trump tariffs. The U.S. is set to achieve record trade deficit in 2025 if the current rate of deficits continue, surpassing its previous record of $918 billion in 2024. In 2024, deficit with China reached close to $295 billion, which is likely to be surpassed by as early as August in 2025. U.S. job openings increased 191,000 to 7.4 million, indicating that businesses are hiring despite the ongoing macroeconomic uncertainty. Across the Atlantic, consumer price inflation in the Eurozone slid to 1.9% below the target rate set by the European Central Bank of 2%. The weakening of inflation confirms that businesses are struggling to pass on price increases amid soft consumer demand and renewed global trade tensions. The European Central Bank lowered its key lending rate by 25 basis points as widely anticipated. Rates fell to the lowest level in more than 2 years. Policymakers lowered 2025's inflation outlook by 30 basis points to 2%, but reiterated GDP growth estimate at 0.9%. In Asia, the Reserve Bank of India lowered its key lending rate by 50 basis points to 5.5%, surpassing the market participants' expectations. The RBI held its fiscal year 2026 GDP growth estimate at 6.5% and lowered inflation estimate to 3.7% from the previous estimate of 4%. In other economic news, Germany's trade surplus dropped 34% from a year ago in April as imports continued to increase and exports struggled. Japan's nominal wages in April rose, but real wages adjusted for inflation declined for the fourth month in a row. Nominal household spending rose, but real spending adjusted for inflation declined 0.1%, confirming that consumers are not ready to deliver a boost to the Japanese economy. Let us review key events in global bond, currency, and commodity markets last week. The yield on 10-year U.S. Treasury edged up to 4.5% following a jobs report that signaled a gradually cooling yet resilient job market, tempering expectations of a rate cut by the Federal Reserve. Texas crude oil prices soared 7% to $64 a barrel and halted a 4-week slide after the U.S. job report eased economic growth worries and supported demand growth outlook. Natural gas prices in Europe jumped about 4% to 36 euros and 20 cents per megawatt hour amid supply growth worries because of planned maintenance at Norway's processing plant. Russia stepped up attacks in Ukraine, raising concerns about future supplies from Russia. The euro stabilized around $1.14 after the ECB signaled that the rate easing cycle may be nearing its end, and the dollar edged higher after the U.S. payrolls expanded at a faster than anticipated pace. The yen weakened to 145 after the real wages declined for the fourth month in a row in April, easing pressure on the central bank to raise rates at the next meeting later in the month. Let us shift our attention to major stock markets in the U.S., Europe, and Asia. The S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite rebounded for the second consecutive week despite elevated trade tensions between the U.S. and China. European markets extended weekly gains after the ECB cut rates as widely anticipated, but the central bank signaled that the rate easing cycle is nearing its end. The Nikkei 225 stock average extended gains for the second week in a row amid optimism about a trade deal with the U.S. Hong Kong and China indices advanced after a call between Trump and Xi raised hopes for the resumption of trade talks and avoiding a trade war between the two largest economies. Indian market indices jumped after the Reserve Bank of India unexpectedly delivered a jumbo-sized rate cut. We now shift our attention to merger deals, market movers, and earnings update from leading companies last week. Circle Internet Group priced its initial public offering at $31 per share, giving the payment technology company a market cap of $6.8 billion. PVH Corp, the parent company of Calvin Klein and other branded apparel goods, cited tariff impacts and lowered its current quarter outlook following strong fiscal quarter results. Five Below reported strong first quarter results. The discount store chain issued a cautious outlook, citing tariff-driven uncertainty. Dollar Tree and Dollar General Corp reported strong first quarter results, and the discount retailer issued positive guidance. Signet Jewelers posted better than expected fiscal first quarter 2026 results, and the diamond jewelry retailer reiterated its current quarter and full year outlooks. Ulta Beauty reported higher revenue in the first quarter and reiterated its annual outlook. The cosmetic retailer also plans to open almost 60 new stores in the fiscal 2025. The British American Tobacco plc posted mixed first half 2024 results, and for the full year, the company swung from an operating loss a year ago. Wizz Air, the Hungarian-based discount airline, or rather Hungary-based discount airline, failed to meet analyst expectations for its fiscal year 2025 results. Tate & Lyle, the UK-based specialty food and beverage company, posted higher revenue, but profit declined in the fiscal year ending in March. Volvo Car reported weak quarterly results, and the Swedish passenger car manufacturer launched two new fully electric models, and the company completed the divestment of its 30% stake in Link & Company to China-based Zeekr Intelligence Technology. In the week ahead, investors in the U.S. are looking forward to the release of monthly wholesale inventories and inflation reports. On the earnings front, investors anticipate results from Oracle, Chewy, Adobe, GameStop, United Natural Foods, Dave & Buster's Entertainment, and Oxford Industries. In Europe, markets are looking ahead to the release of France's foreign exchange results, UK's retail sales and unemployment rate, and Italy's industrial production and balance of trade data. The UK is also scheduled to report GDP growth, goods trade balance, construction output, and industrial production data. Germany, France, and Spain are expected to release their inflation rates data, and the Eurozone will report on balance of trade and industrial production data. On the earnings front in Europe, investors are looking ahead to results from Tesco, Halfords Group, Inditex, Flughafen Zurich, Fraport, and Photon Energy. In Asia, investors expect results of release of Japan's GDP growth, current account, industrial production, and producer price information, as well as China's inflation rate, producer prices, balance of trade, and monthly vehicle sales data. India is scheduled to release its inflation rate, balance of trade, and passenger vehicle sales updates. On the earnings front, markets in Asia anticipate results from TSMC, On High Precision Industry, United Microelectronics, Foxconn Technology, Fast Retailing, and Fuji Corporation. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, stock movers, earnings releases, SEC filings, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can find the latest financial books on Rodera.com, keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com, review ETF and mutual fund performance and in-depth profiles on tickerfunds.com, and review market updates and stock movers in India on niveshak.in. That is all for today, and we will see you next week.